Hello and welcome. In this explainer, we're going to tackle a really important question for any growing nonprofit. When, exactly, do you need to register to fundraise in more than just your home state? Let's dive right in.
This explainer is part of the Multi-State Fundraising Compliance Series. It's a resource we've put together here at Ironwood Registrations to help nonprofit leaders like you make sense of these complex topics.
You know, this is probably one of the top questions we hear. We're based in one state, so why would we ever need to register anywhere else? It's a great question. Totally makes sense to ask. But the answer, well, it can be a little surprising, and it's absolutely fundamental to staying compliant.
So, let's get to the core principle. It's actually pretty simple. State registration isn't triggered by where your office is. It's triggered by where your fundraising activities actually happen. You see, states put these rules in place to protect their residents, the donors, from any fraudulent or misleading asks, and to make sure the whole charitable sector is transparent.
The one word you really need to remember through all of this is solicits. That's it. It's simply the act of asking for a donation. And that one simple but really powerful idea is what drives almost every single charitable registration rule in the entire country.
So, just to make it crystal clear, let's talk about what does not trigger registration. It's not about your legal address or where your board members happen to live. It's not even about where your main office is or where you run your programs. It all comes down to one thing: where you are asking for money. Okay, so in today's digital world, it is so easy to cross state lines without even thinking about it. These modern fundraising tools can expand your compliance footprint really fast, and a lot of the time, it's not even an intentional decision. Just think about how common all of these things are: sending out an email blast, running a social media ad, or, even just having that Donate Now button on your website. All of these can be considered soliciting in every single state where that request can be seen.
And this is how it happens. This is how a nonprofit's reach can just explode almost overnight. What starts as a local cause might get some national media attention, or maybe you'll launch a super successful crowdfunding campaign. All of a sudden, you've got a national donor base, and right along with it, national compliance obligations.
And here's a really critical point to understand. There is no single national place to register. You can't just fill out one form and be done with it. Nope. Every single state is its own little kingdom. They have their own rules, their own forms, their own deadlines, and that, as you can imagine, is what adds a pretty big layer of complexity to all of this.
Now, because this is so complex, a lot of myths and misunderstandings have popped up over the years. So let's take a few minutes to clear those up, because frankly, believing them can get pretty costly.
All right, myth number 1. This is a classic. We don't have an office in that state, so we're fine.
That is just not true. Your physical presence, or lack of it, is almost never the trigger. What matters to state regulators is the act of solicitation.
Okay, next common mistake. This is the idea that the Donate Now button on your website is just sort of passive. You know, it's just sitting there waiting for someone to stumble upon it.
But the truth is, your website doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? When you combine it with your email campaigns, your social media, and all the other things you do to drive traffic there, that passive page suddenly becomes a very, very active part of your fundraising strategy.
Here's another one we hear all the time. It was just one tiny donation from someone in that state. That can't possibly matter, can it?
And, a single truly unsolicited gift probably won't trigger a requirement. But the whole picture changes if you then add that donor to your mailing list and keep asking them for support. It's that pattern of repeated activity that creates the obligation.
This next one is probably the riskiest approach of all, the wait-and-see method. The idea here is, we'll just wait until a state sends us a letter and then we'll deal with it.
But let me tell you, waiting for that letter to show up is a reactive strategy, and it almost always ends in a headache. We're talking late fees, having to go back and file for years you missed, and just a massive administrative burden on your staff. It is so much better to get ahead of this. And finally, the last big mistake, thinking that registration is a one-and-done deal. You do the paperwork, you file it, and you're good forever. The reality is, nearly every state that requires you to register also requires you to renew that registration every single year. This is an ongoing compliance duty that you've got to track and manage year in and year out.
Okay, so we've covered the principles and the common pitfalls. Now, how can you be proactive about this? Let's walk through a practical framework you can use to check your own organization's exposure.
Here are the questions you should be discussing with your development and finance teams. The answers to these are going to give you a really clear picture of your fundraising footprint. Are you tracking where your donors actually live? Do you know where your digital ads are being shown? This is the starting point for a smart, proactive compliance strategy.
Look, if there's only one thing you remember from our time together, please let it be this. It's your fundraising geography, not your headquarters location, that determines your registration needs. And if you're fundraising in multiple states, then you absolutely need a multi-state compliance plan.
We really hope this explainer was helpful. For more compliance guides and other educational resources, please visit us at ironwoodregistrations.com. Thank you for your time.